Here is a recipe for chaos that is not too far-fetched. Now, look at the standings right now. You have 3 teams with 1 conference loss, but there's a possibility for an 8-way tie for first place, and this is all it takes. Weeks 12 through 14, we need Georgia to beat Tennessee first.
Okay.
That's popular. Next week, we need Auburn to finally beat somebody at home. They get A&M. And then with an A&M loss, then if Texas were to then lose in College Station, everybody would be 6-2. Now, the one caveat here is that those other 4 teams, Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU, would have to avoid losing to teams ranked below them or below them in the standings. And as it stands right now, Missouri's about a 2-touchdown underdog to South Carolina. But a man can dream. Okay, for an 8-way tie as Tim Tebow joins us.
Oh, my
SEC
God.
Nation is also here this weekend.
It's so good to see Tim Tebow. Tim, I love you, man.
Is there ever a bad
Do you
time
only
to see
say it
Tim
if you
Tebow?
mean it, Pat?
I do
say
mean
it if you mean it.
Tim, I've never felt great whenever I have felt your presence. I just want to let you know that. You just radiate positive energy. So the fact that you're here, what a time to be alive. And the SEC chaos is certainly going to be a big discussion, Rece.
So is that positive energy to root for an 8-way tie for first place in the SEC?
Why not?
Do you think it happens? What do you think?
I do not think it happens. I don't know that Auburn is prepared to knock somebody off this year. Let's just be honest about that. But I love seeing the chaos. And I think the committee also has to understand the gauntlet that all these teams are going through. And I don't believe they're really giving them a lot of respect. They're just looking at the number in the loss column, and they're not really understanding the gauntlet that all these teams are going through. Because if you want to talk about best teams, and you're going to say that this Georgia team on a neutral field wouldn't beat some of those teams ranked ahead of them, come on.
Yeah, I think really what you have to look at is this strength of schedule thing has been underplayed a little bit. I mean, what would these teams do if they played Georgia's schedule? This is the 5th top 20 team Georgia has played. But on the other hand, I think there's 3 teams that's kind of distinguished themselves a little bit in the SEC, even though they're not perfect. You know, Alabama plays very well when Jalen Milroe plays well, and the team feeds off of him.
No doubt.
You know, Ole Miss, you got to give them credit for their performance last week, but they've had a couple bumps in the road that were sort of unpredictable.
Absolutely.
And Texas, who seems on paper to be one of the best teams, has only played 1 top team and got beat. So, by the Bulldogs. Yep. So none of those teams are perfect, but I do think they've distinguished themselves as teams that could be very good.
Well, I think what's different this year about a lot of years in the SEC, the best teams in the SEC all have holes. A lot of the best teams for Kirby, back in the day, there were not as many holes. This is a really good year for the SEC as far as having a lot of good teams. I don't know if it's as good for having the elite, the great teams.
Well, and out of fear of everybody saying this is SEC ESPN, you know, which is certainly something that gets talked about, it's like there are 2 conferences that have clearly become the 2 conferences this year. Now, what does the future look like? I don't know. But as somebody that's been able to be baptized into this college football world, it is different down here. And the strength of schedule needs to come in a little bit more. And if you want to talk about strength of schedule, Tennessee has a great argument as well, depending upon what happens today, what happens going forward. It's like you can argue for every one of these SEC teams except for Texas. Like if Texas loses to Arkansas or Texas A&M at the end of the season, they have no big wins really, other than just a big loss to Georgia. So every one of these teams has an argument, and I'm thanking God and Tim Tebow every day that I am not on the playoff committee and have to make those decisions.
It's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you.
I normally only see him at the ceremony or
Heisman House.
Exactly. So it's good to see you. Surprised they let you in here. I mean, you've been a Gator, but yeah. But I think the most dangerous team in the SEC right now is Ole Miss.
Okay.
I think Ole Miss is the most dangerous team for one reason, Coach. You guys know this. When you slay the dragon, it does a lot for the confidence of your team. Because now they don't no longer think they can beat Georgia or one of the big dogs. They no longer believe. They know they can do it. And so that's a dangerous thing right now for a team that got as much talent as Lane Kiffin has. And number 2, people start to look at you differently. oh, okay, they knocked off Georgia. Because it wasn't a close game.
No.
It was 28-10.
Yeah.
So they beat them emphatically. I think Ole Miss right now, because of their confidence, they're one of the most dangerous teams. The only thing I don't like, Coach, after that win, they got to buy. so everybody's been patting them on the back.
Hey, Des, to add to that point.
Exactly.
To add to that point, Ole Miss did it without their best player in Trey Harris.
Hey, Trey Harris, the wide receiver, exactly.
By far their best player. And they also
100%.
did it without their best running backs as well. That makes a really big statement.
Yes, sir.
And I think what's different, obviously, about Ole Miss is Lane has a defense now. You know, in the past, it was trying to outscore people.
Yeah.
Now they can win a line of scrimmage.
100%.
I just think, you know, it's easy to forget about Tennessee because I think everyone focuses on the big brands and the teams that have consistently been there. Tennessee already beat Alabama.
Yep.
Tennessee wins tonight. They'll have wins over Alabama and Georgia. Haven't played their best by far. They've not been able to put it together. But with that defense they have, and if Nico gets going and starts to hit those shots, which he's more than capable of doing, with the running game of Dylan Sampson, I think Tennessee is a team, if they get, now they got to do it tonight. It's going to be a tough task for them. Tennessee's a team not to forget about. And the last thing that blew me away when they brought this up, we thought last week was elimination game with LSU. Tell me what has to, if LSU rights the ship, and this isn't that far-fetched, if LSU wins the next three, and what has to happen?
They need to finish in a tie because of the teams they played.
Just 2 losses.
With 2 losses, they have to win the tiebreaker, which they have some advantages because they're strength
It's just
schedule.
2 things have to happen.
Right.
Arkansas, Missouri.
Arkansas, I think Missouri has to lose to Arkansas.
Which could happen.
Could
There's
happen.
one other
Missouri
thing.
could lose today.
And Georgia wins today. And if LSU wins out. So, I mean, that's how crazy this thing is. They could get to Atlanta. LSU could get to Atlanta.
The chaos thing is because if you wind up with a tie, if you wind up with this silly 8-way tie that we talked about, it would be, I think, LSU and Alabama in the championship game. And what we're talking about here is getting the automatic bid, which gives an entirely different component to the playoff race as opposed to
who's the best team in the SEC?
Ole Miss. Best team.
Right now.
I gave the most dangerous team is Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss.
We're all tied. Alabama.
Coach, what do you think? Best team right now?
Well,
in the SEC.
But I want to make a point that Tim made about every team has a hole.
Yes.
Right.
Ole Miss probably is the best base right now. Right? But the reason they have a hole is Georgia had recruited really, really well. Alabama recruited really, really well.
Yeah.
They get high-profile players that leave after a year if they're not playing.
Yep.
So you lose your backup.
Yeah.
So you don't have any depth on your team. You have your frontline players, but you don't have any depth.
Yeah.
All right? And you can't recruit depth out of the portal because those guys want to come and play, so you're not going to recruit any backup players. So that's why I think everybody's got some holes.
That makes sense. Best team right now in the SEC?
Right now, with Trey Harris coming back, I'll
Miss
give it
too?
to Ole Miss by a bit.
When Alabama's at their best, the way Jalen Milroe looked last week, I'm with Pat. I think I would give Alabama the
I'm going to
nod.
go get some piece cake.
I'm just glad you brought.
Hold on one second. He can't
That
let
was
him
impressive.
slide.
Well, he didn't say.
I also
He
think
didn't
they
say.
match up different against different teams.
Look,
man.
good job.
All right, we got to wrap this.
Here
Here
we
we
got
go.
good
rat
catch.
poison every now and then.
Who's the best team in the
Best
SEC?
right now in the SEC.
Well, I love
said Ole
Alabama.
Miss.
You know, that's
You said
my
Ole
team.
Miss.
That's my guys. That's who I'm rooting
You say
for. But
Ole Miss.
I said Ole Miss
Ole Miss.
is really playing
okay.
well right now.
I'm just glad you brought it up because you almost forced me to go into Laurel, Tennessee. Nobody paying attention to Tennessee. All they're doing is sitting in first place in the conference.